The wind whistles through empty streets. Massive domes rise above half-buried buildings, their spires piercing gray clouds. Maps from the 18th century mark a land called Tartaria, stretching across continents, but modern textbooks say it never existed. What if history is missing a chapter? Not because it was forgotten, but because it was erased. For centuries, these cities stood, adorned with towers and impossible architecture, powered by technologies that seemed decades, or even centuries, ahead of their time. Then, almost overnight, they vanished from our records. The mud floods swept streets clean, or so the stories go, burying evidence beneath layers of soil, stone, and secrecy. Every brick, every ornate facade, every grand square whispers questions historians struggle to answer. Who built them? How were they powered? And why were they forgotten? Some say Tartaria was a global empire, connecting civilizations across the planet, its knowledge erased to hide truths too dangerous to remember. Others claim it's a myth, a dream of maps and old books, a civilization conjured by imagination. But the evidence lingers, subtle yet stubborn. Tonight, we peel back the veil. We follow the ruins, the maps, the legends, and we confront a history that refuses to stay buried. The Tartarian Empire isn't just lost, it's hidden in plain sight. Long before the age of railways and electricity, maps depicted a vast land called Tartaria, sprawling across Siberia, Central Asia, and parts of Europe. Yet for most of modern history, the name has been stripped from textbooks, dismissed as a cartographer's error or myth. But scratch the surface, and a different story begins to emerge. Architects, explorers, and chroniclers of the 17th and 18th centuries left traces, sketches of massive domes, ornate towers, and city grids that defied the era's known technology. These weren't simple villages or fortresses. They were sprawling urban centers with engineering that seems almost alien in its ambition. Historical records offer tantalizing glimpses. Old Russian documents mention Tartarian settlements, while European maps mark a terra incognita with precision far beyond the imagination of ordinary cartographers. The scale is staggering. Cities that could rival Paris, networks that connected mountains, rivers, and plains, and infrastructure suggesting a civilization with knowledge lost to time. And yet, as the 19th century dawned, references began disappearing. The empire that once sprawled across continents faded into obscurity, leaving behind only fragments, grand buildings, old gates, and whispers of an impossible past. Modern researchers debate, was Tartaria a real empire, obliterated by political upheaval, natural disasters, or deliberate erasure? Or is it a phantom, a product of misinterpreted maps and imaginative storytelling? Every ruined facade and half-buried city seems to answer. The truth is somewhere in between. What we know, or think we know, is only a fragment of a grander history, a puzzle scattered across continents and centuries, waiting for those who dare to look beyond the accepted narrative. Step closer, and the buildings themselves begin to tell a story that defies reason. Massive domes, ornate towers, and intricate spires rise from the earth, often half buried, as if time itself is trying to swallow them. These are not the humble constructions of ordinary cities. They are monuments to ambition, precision, and artistry, far beyond what contemporaries could imagine. The patterns carved into stone, the perfectly aligned arches, the sweeping staircases, all suggest a civilization that understood engineering on a scale the 18th and 19th centuries should not have been capable of. Photographs of old Russian cities, European towns, and even colonial settlements in the Americas reveal structures eerily similar: domed halls, onion-shaped towers, and colossal gates with decorative flourishes. Why do these architectural motifs appear across continents, in cultures that supposedly had no contact? Some theorists argue for a lost global empire, Tartaria, whose builders shared knowledge before it was systematically erased. Others say it's coincidence, but coincidences don't leave entire cities with buried floors, forgotten foundations, and design elements that repeat with uncanny precision worldwide. The mud flood theory emerges here, offering a potential explanation for the strange layering of buildings, entire floors buried beneath sudden, unexplained layers of soil, leaving only rooftops visible. Could these structures be remnants of an advanced civilization, swept under the earth and hidden from view? Or are they simply anomalies, the lucky survivors of time and neglect? Whatever the answer, each dome, tower, and ornate arch demands attention. They are silent witnesses to a past that challenges everything we think we know about human achievement. Open an atlas from the 18th century, and Tartaria stretches across continents, labeled boldly across Siberia, Central Asia, and beyond. But open a modern textbook, and the empire has vanished, replaced by blank spaces or vague regions. How does an empire simply disappear? How do entire civilizations fade from records without a trace? The maps themselves are haunting, precise, and detailed. Rivers drawn with care, mountain ranges charted meticulously, cities marked with symbols no longer found anywhere. Yet, within a single generation, almost all references vanish, as if someone, some power, decided the world could not remember. Even official records offer tantalizing clues. Russian archives describe Tartarian towns with streets wider than most European capitals, and elaborate buildings with technologies that seem impossible for the era. European travelers mention encounters with immense cities that appear on maps, but never in reality, leaving them puzzled. Then, suddenly, these mentions disappear, scrubbed from the record. Governments, historians, and cartographers all act as if Tartaria never existed. Why? Was it war, disaster, or deliberate erasure? Some whispers suggest a coordinated effort to rewrite history, to bury knowledge that could challenge the accepted timeline of civilization. This is the heart of the mystery. The empire didn't just decline, it was erased. Maps vanish, records vanish, footnotes vanish, and all that remains are the buildings, partially buried, half forgotten, daring us to ask, what truths about human history were buried along with them? The Vanishing Act is not a story of chaos or decay. It's a story of deliberate silence, and those ruins are the only witnesses to a global secret that refuses to die. Walk the streets of old cities and a strange sight emerges. Rooftops peeking above streets, windows half buried, entire floors swallowed by layers of earth. This is the signature of what theorists call the mud floods, a phenomenon that allegedly reshaped landscapes overnight, burying entire cities in sediment. Was it a natural disaster, a climatic anomaly, or something far more deliberate? Across continents, the evidence repeats. Buildings seemingly too tall, too ornate, too precise for their supposed era, now partially buried and forgotten. And here lies the question that gnaws at historians and theorists alike. If Tartaria truly existed, why erase it? What knowledge, what power, would be so dangerous that generations would be persuaded to forget it? Some argue technological suppression. The empire's engineering and energy systems may have outstripped anything in the known world. Others hint at political motives, a global civilization erased to rewrite history, to ensure no one remembered an alternate path humanity might have taken. Even religious or ideological motives are whispered, powers who could not allow a civilization of such scale and sophistication to survive in memory. Every half-buried facade, every ornate dome, every strange layer of earth is a clue, a signpost pointing towards secrets someone wanted to bury. And yet, they are stubborn, refusing to stay hidden. The mud floods may have covered the streets, but they could not cover the imagination. The question remains, who decided that Tartaria must vanish, and what truths were deemed too dangerous to preserve? The ruins beckon us to find out. Step beyond Siberia, and the trail of Tartaria seems to stretch across continents. Look at European towns with ornate domes and towers, colonial cities in the Americas, and even the grand architectural anomalies in Asia, and patterns emerge. Could these be echoes of a single, lost civilization, a network of cities sharing knowledge, style, and engineering? Buildings with identical motifs appear continents apart, as if blueprints traveled faster than ships, as if a civilization connected the world long before globalization. Some researchers argue that Tartaria was more than a regional empire. It may have been a global one, Its technological footprint is hinted at in massive infrastructure projects that predate recorded engineering techniques, in urban grids that defy conventional planning, in rivers and canals rerouted with precision that seems impossible without advanced knowledge. Even the partially buried structures, the so-called mudflood sites, appear in multiple regions, hinting at widespread phenomena. The implications are staggering. If Tartaria truly spanned continents, it would rewrite our understanding of human history. The civilization erased from maps, scrubbed from records, and half buried by mysterious forces may have influenced the world in ways we barely comprehend. And yet, the evidence is subtle, scattered, and often dismissed as coincidence. But the repetition, the scale, the precision, it cannot be ignored. The ruins, the towers, the domes, they are whispers of a global empire whose story challenges everything we thought we knew about the past. By now, the pieces are impossible to ignore. Maps that once stretched across continents, cities built with impossible precision, and architectural motifs repeating across the globe, all point to a civilization that should not have been forgotten. And yet, history erased it. Who decided that Tartaria must vanish, and why? Was it fear? Fear of knowledge, of technology, of power beyond control? Was it politics, an empire too vast to tolerate, too influential to survive in memory? Or was it something subtler, an ideology that sought to rewrite the past to shape the future? The evidence is scattered, fragmentary, yet persistent. Half-buried buildings, old photographs, and forgotten manuscripts refuse to vanish entirely. They are relics of a deliberate act, a censorship that spans generations. And the deeper you look, the more questions multiply. Were entire cities buried in mudfloods to hide them from sight? Were records altered, maps redrawn, and histories rewritten to erase the truth? Some whisper of global coordination, of forces so determined that even the memory of Tartaria had to be buried. Yet, even in erasure, the empire speaks. The domes still rise above the earth, towers still pierce the sky, and streets still hint at grandeur long forgotten. Tartaria challenges us to question everything we think we know about civilization, technology, and the paths humanity has taken. Its disappearance is not a story of decay. It is a story of silence, deliberate and profound, leaving behind only whispers and ruins to tell its tale. The ruins remain. Towers rise from the earth like silent sentinels. Domes peak above streets buried in mud, and facades carved with impossible precision whisper of a civilization that refuses to be forgotten. Tartaria may have vanished from maps, records, and textbooks, but it has not vanished from the world entirely. Its presence lingers in stone, in brick, in the very layout of cities, daring us to question what we think we know about history. Perhaps Tartaria was a global empire, a civilization erased to protect secrets too powerful for the generations that followed. Perhaps it was misremembered, misinterpreted, or lost to natural disaster. Or perhaps it is both, a civilization partially buried by time, partially buried by those who sought to control memory itself. The truth remains tantalizingly out of reach, scattered across continents, buried beneath layers of earth, obscured by the pages of rewritten history. What we do know is this: the past is not always what it seems. The story of Tartaria reminds us that history is not merely what is recorded, it is what survives, what is remembered, and what is deliberately forgotten. The towers, the domes, the streets half buried in mud, they call to us across the centuries, daring us to see beyond the official narrative. And if we listen carefully, perhaps we will hear the whispers of an empire that the world tried to erase, but could never truly silence. History is waiting. Tartaria is waiting. And the question remains, will we uncover it or leave it hidden forever?